Councillor Connolly.
Tánaiste, thank you for coming in, and it's good that you're prepared to answer questions and give a speech and apologise for your error of judgment. When did you realise you made an error of judgment?
Fair question, Deputy. I don't know. I know the right answer is
let me help your
right
memory.
away,
did you realise you made an error of judgment when the Village magazine contacted you?
I can't obviously point to a date when I know what you're trying to imply is that I only decided this was an error of judgment when it entered the public domain. I don't think that would be fair. The truth is I didn't think about it for months and months and months. Lots of things are on your plate as Taoiseach and as party leader.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Let me just put this in context for you. When all of this was happening, and when you were leaking a confidential document to an organisation for the GPs that didn't come within the framework under which you were negotiating in private, the homeless figures passed 10,000 in Ireland for the first time in February 19 and continue to rise. Social Justice reported that 1 in 6 or 760,000 people lived in Ireland with an income below the poverty line and so on. And we were desperately, with the help of children in the street, forcing you to declare a climate emergency. That was the background. And you take a hands-on approach. And I've asked you now, and I welcome your apology and your acknowledgement. I asked you when you learned about that, and you didn't think about it, so therefore you didn't learn about it. And then Village magazine, and I have serious questions actually myself in relation to how a whistleblower tells all he knows now, and so, but that's for, I've only a few minutes and I won't go into it. So there's certainly a context there. But I asked you when did you learn, so you clearly didn't think about it until Village magazine. Then they rang you or contacted your office, presumably in relation to what they were going to print. Did I understand you to say you didn't reply to that?
They didn't contact me here, so they didn't contact me personally. They did send an email to my office in the week previously asking if I'd given a document to a different doctor. The what? I didn't reply, no.
That's okay. And then did you go and discuss it with your friend, who was your friend at the time, not so much your friend now, Dr. O'Toole? Did you discuss that Village magazine had contacted you before the article was published?
No, I didn't. Not at that point. Not until the article was published, or was the Friday night or whatever.
When I look at your speech, and it's full of good things, and then absolutely what I've noticed since the day I was elected from that side when they're reading out speeches, it's full of spin as well, of course, and full of internal contradictions. And so you talk about the rivalry between the organisations was often bitter. It made agreement harder to achieve and held back progress. And then you go to the rival organisation that's not provided for under the framework and you give them a confidential document. Do you think that was right?
I think what I was trying to do was right, which was, as I explained earlier, to demonstrate that what was in the terms of agreement in the 110-page document was what had been substantially announced already. That it was a good agreement for GPs, for patients, for the health service in general, that this was something that they shouldn't oppose, that they shouldn't be against. So
Taoiseach, I've heard all your replies and you've repeated that very often, but you see you're describing them as rivalry, the rivalry, and I've read it out to you. And then you knew that at the time, and then you give them what's a confidential document. Now, you've gone to great pains to say a lot of that was in the public domain. That's not accurate, because your friend at the time and his friends, the chairperson of the organisation and the CEO, were texting each other at the end of April, or certainly very late in April, that they couldn't hold on to membership because they didn't have the details of the contract. Isn't that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
I haven't seen any of that.
Okay. Well, that's what we're being informed when we read emails. And can you imagine we're now in a situation like this where we have to question the Tánaiste in relation to emails, some of which are absolutely deplorable, where questions are being asked of a doctor, would you like to get involved, or a doctor putting a question to a business person, would you like to get involved with direct provision? And of course we know the Taoiseach at the time, his views on that. The deplorable texts. You've seen them, because we've all seen them. They've been published. So now just let me stay with this, because I don't expect you to answer any of that. But this is the context of how this has come out. And these friends telling each other, listen, we have to keep this confidential because otherwise they'll know where it came from. Now, please, haven't had the time to reflect. What do you think of the nature of that type of emails between your friend who has friends talking like that?
And I believe the person who you describe as the whistleblower was one of those people. I think those messages were deplorable too, but I'd never seen them until the last couple of days, and they weren't from me to anyone. They were between third parties, including people I didn't know or I'd never met, and I can be accountable from my actions and my messages and what I say and I do. I can't be accountable for other people. And just finally, you're right to say they were a rival organisation, but that's not the full context. This was a contract that was being offered to all GPs to sign up to or not. And it was important that it was...
Don't mind me interrupting you. I've heard that, and I've very little time. I've heard it. I've heard you say it, you don't need to keep repeating it. But what I'm more concerned is your informal way of doing things, looking after your friends. And you've got to accept, to any person looking on, it's insiders and outsiders. And Dr. O'Toole was an insider with you. And then if we put that in context of, you actually said in relation to Golfgate in Clifton that you had to lead by example. And various members of your party resigned their positions because it was so serious what they did, their error of judgment, and lead by example. Did you lead by example here is one question. And the second question is, I go back to your planning matter where you phoned the county council and was covered in Time magazine. And so what you did, I endeavoured to do what I could do. This was for Trump, who didn't want a wind farm going up or a windmill. I rang the county council and inquired about planning permission, and subsequently was declined. And it was very good of you to say, probably had nothing to do with you, but you got the praise for it and so on. And you go back down in relation to Trump. He wasn't president at the time. In many ways, I actually like that approach because, you know, traditional civil service and diplomatic approaches can be all about hierarchies. And sometimes the principals just need to talk and sort it out. The principal at that stage being you as a minister and Mr. Trump, who wasn't president. That's the informal way you did business. And I'm telling you, and I've run out of time for you to give me an answer, that that's the way you continue to do it. And there was certainly a gain, a political gain, because you bought off the threatened massive political campaign by that organisation of which Dr. O'Toole was a member, and he threatened to put posters everywhere, to go to all to candidates and so on, and a massive campaign, and you bought it off. Thank you.
Tánaiste, if you want to make a...
No, I really just don't think that assessment is correct, Ceann Comhairle. The reason why we concluded that agreement with the IMO, not with the NAGP, at a cost to the taxpayer of €210 million, was because we wanted to. We thought it was the right thing to restore funding to general practice, to reverse FEMPI, to make it viable again, to stop the hemorrhage of young doctors from our country, and also, and particularly, to bring in a chronic disease management programme at a cost of 80 million. That's why we did it, because we thought it was the right thing to do. It wasn't about buying off any campaign, not at all.
Thank you very much.